Speaking of Richmond, he's there. He's in the General Assembly. Rain nor snow nor sleet can keep them away. They just keep trucking. We're with State Senator from the Eastern Shore, Democrat Lynwood Lewis. Hey, Senator, great to have you.
Good morning, John. Great to be with you.
So let me just ask you straight off the bat here. Saslaw says you're his number one guy in there, his go-to guy. So you've been there 13 months. So how have you become such an effective senator, Senator Lewis, in such a short period of time?
Well, I appreciate the flattery, but I just put my head down and try and do my job to represent the folks in the 6th District, and with a little hard work, and we just do the best we can, and we see what happens. So sometimes we're successful, and sometimes we're not. But I appreciate the compliment.
Well, that's what Saslaw said. He says it's the Eastern Shore way, walk softly, and carry a cannon.
Well, and Dick certainly has the gift for putting things in concise phrases. So, but I do think, and there is some truth to that. I mean, I think the personality of the area and the region has a unique way of impacting how you approach legislation in the legislative process. I do believe that is true.
Okay, Senator, let's run down some of the top issues that you've either had to make a decision on or are going to make a decision on. What's your beef with the Tebow bill?
Well, actually, John, I voted for it yesterday for the first time.
Oh, you did? You voted for it? That's okay, good.
Yeah, I did that because Senator Garrett introduced a floor amendment yesterday, which made it a local option. And so now it'll be up to the local school boards to determine whether it's appropriate for homeschool kids to participate in public school sports activities. It has always been a tough call for me because I certainly sympathize with those folks, and I certainly support their right to homeschool. But when they made it purely local option, it struck me that that's probably the right place to have the discussion in each individual community. You
did the right thing yesterday, and I also really loved Garrett's amendment because, look, I want to get this stuff out of the hands of the state, of the General Assembly anyway, and into the hands of the local school representatives that we represent, that represent us to make the decisions in our localities. Right. And so I think you did the right thing there. Okay, I'm skeptical of Frank Wagner. I know he's your colleague right down the road. I'm skeptical of Frank Wagner's Dominion power legislation. Not saying I don't like it, Senator, but, when I was up there the day that was going down, Dominion power must have had 400 that looked like lobbyists in there. Right. And they all had three-piece, $3,000 Italian suits on. God knows how much money they were making. And so they got all these lobbyists and lawyers down there, and basically what their objective is to get senators to freeze their rates. That just made me wary. What say you?
And John, you're right to be skeptical. We were skeptical as well. I can tell you a lot of time was spent considering that bill, talking amongst ourselves about that bill. And we received briefings from Dominion and also from the environmental and conservation community on their trouble with the bill. But at the end of the day, the bill that was passed was very different from the bill that Senator Wagner introduced. And I think it shows that the legislative process really can work well, especially in a short period of time on a complex issue. We achieved some significant environmental concessions from Dominion in that bill. And we've got a real commitment to make some leaps and bounds strides in solar energy now. Dominion has also committed to a robust program of weatherization for low-income folks, and to report on the progress of that. Every year they're going to have to report on the progress of that. They're going to go through with their current base rate process with the State Corporation Commission. And also, John, there's value in certainty. We are about to enter some very uncertain times in regard with the Clean Power Plan, the new EPA regs, and we don't know which way that uncertainty is going to flow, whether it's going to be against the consumer or against the electric utility provider. So I think there's some value for both the consumer and the utility provider in having some certainty in the next several years as this thing plays out.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is you looked at it and decided stability of rates probably the right thing to do. I can see that. Let's stay with energy. I know that this is not going through the shore. It doesn't really impact you, so not in your backyard per se, but let's stick with energy. Atlantic Coast Pipeline, Mountain Valley Pipeline. What do you think?
Right. I support the pipeline. And I think the pipeline is going to be great for Hampton Roads. Natural gas is, we need to improve our abilities to use natural gas. It's going to create jobs. It's going to entice manufacturing, all sorts of benefits from it. I'm very sensitive to the property issue rights that are going on out there now as they try to get the right of way. And clearly the rights of landowners need to be respected. But at the end of the day, getting this pipeline in here is essential, I think, going forward. Especially now when we look at things like the Clean Power Plan and the EPA rules and what's going to happen to coal. Coal's down to I think 10 years ago, it was over half of our generating fuel, and now it's down to about 30%. And so we obviously need to look at natural gas, look at nuclear, and look at solar and wind as well.
Okay, so Mountain Valley Pipeline, look, absolutely makes sense. Thing that you have to do. Natural gas is going to lower energy prices. Also, what the pipeline does, and I'm 100% behind it, is it's going to create the opportunity for jobs because manufacturers have the opportunity to locate their companies in along the pipeline to tap into that energy. So you can't do that when you're transporting it by truck or by train. That's
right.
Why I think the pipeline is a job creator. It's going to take energy down. Absolutely right thing to do. Talk to us about Chap Peterson's initiative to give us a little more of our liberty back as far as reading plates, being able to read plates, and have law enforcement store that. Drones. How do you stand on these?
Yeah, Chap has taken a real leadership position with Delegate Richard Anderson in this Ben Franklin caucus.
Yes.
To take a hard look at some of these things that we do in the name of security and law enforcement sometimes that really have the potential for eroding our basic liberties. And I certainly applaud both of them for doing that. It's good to cast a bright light on some of this stuff and make us think about it a little harder. The license plate readers, I've always had an issue with those. We certainly need to keep a tight rein on how they are used. There is an appropriate use for them, I believe, but they need to be really tightly constricted in that use. I will tell you the drone issue is Senator McEachin had a bill in on drones, which I think is over on the House side now. I understand the suspicion. I understand the concerns. I think they need to be debated and talked about. But at the end of the day, we are one of 5 or 6 FAA designated test sites for drones, and that's on Wallops Island. We have a $6 million runway project up there to be able to start using these drones and testing them, or UAVs as they're called. And we need to be very careful that we do not have a chilling effect on that nascent industry. Many articles out there now about the future of the drone industry, the UAV industry, and how big it's going to be in this country once we figure out how to integrate it into civilian airspace. And that's what these test sites are doing, figuring out how we integrate these drones into civilian airspace for use in agriculture, land use planning, search and rescue, all deliveries now, if you read Amazon's plans for the not-too-distant future. So I certainly respect the privacy issues involved with the use of drones, but at the same time, we just need to be careful that we do not cut off the tremendous commercial applications and what this could mean for our Virginia economy. Okay,
that's fair enough. We're with State Senator from the Eastern Shore, Democrat Lynwood Lewis here on the John Fredericks Show. John Cosgrove, one of your colleagues in Chesapeake, introduced a constitutional amendment for what I'm going to paraphrase as a transportation fund lockbox. What say you?
And I think that's an important part of building public trust.
Yes.
When we go to the public and tell them we have these transportation needs, and as we did a couple of years ago, have to raise some taxes in order to meet those needs, I think it's important that the public has every confidence that money is going to go for transportation. At the same time, I think we need really the double lock box, and that's been the point of contention. And the double lock box is we lock the general fund insofar as used for the core services, education, healthcare, public safety, and not have the reverse take place. So I think John's on the right track with the Transportation Trust Fund lockbox, but I think it needs to be a broader policy decision. I think we need what is referred to around here sometimes as the double lockbox to make sure that money designated for other core functions stays with those functions as well.
If you're going to have one lockbox, you might as well have two lockboxes or three lockboxes. I think what people are looking for is they want to make sure their tax dollars are going into the areas that the politicians said they would go into when they passed it. And as you may or may not know, Senator, I was the only conservative in the history of the galaxy that was in favor of the 2013 Transportation Compromise. I thought it was the absolute right thing for Virginia. And but I'm wary now that this money that's designated for transportation infrastructure is going to be funneled out to other places. So that makes me wary. Okay, let's get to homeowners' rights. There's a couple of pieces of legislation out there. One again by your colleague Cosgrove in Chesapeake for if you fight with the assessment of your property tax valuation. John says the burden of proof should be on the assessor, not the homeowner. Now, to a lot of people that have been through one of these assessments, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Oh, I think it does too. No, I think John's, from a policy standpoint, I think John's on the right track there. I think that is the appropriate place for the burden in those types of challenges to taxation challenges. I think that is the appropriate place for the burden. I agree with him.
Okay, so we agree on everything. Does that mean you're a Republican now? Is just like talking to me? I've convinced you.
John, it just means you're drifting to the center, which is where I always knew you belonged.
Dream on, but that's okay. Okay, now let's get to the big issue, the elephant in the room, if you will, redistricting. We've got to do something with it because it's inevitable that some justice system is going to weigh in. Obviously, we have to redo the third congressional map. What do you think ought to be done?
My understanding is it's going to be done in the spring, and I would assume it would probably be done around the veto session.
As far as redistricting, who do you think ought to be in charge of it? An independent commission?
That garnered some media attention. It was Senate Bill 1000
that
would have adopted the Iowa model for Virginia and would have shifted the responsibility for drawing the maps over to our Division of Legislative Services, which is completely nonpartisan, and then would have also had included a list of criteria or a list of data points that could not have been considered, voting history, residence of incumbents, all sorts of things, to minimize any kind of political consideration, even by legislative services, which is a non-political body. And the Iowa model has worked well, is held by many to be the gold standard of nonpartisan redistricting. But unfortunately, it sailed through the Senate with bipartisan support and met its fate at a 7 a.m. subcommittee meeting on the fifth floor of the General Assembly building. So, as did a host of other nonpartisan redistricting efforts. So we'll see. We'll be back again next year because I think it is a fundamental problem. It is the cause of most of the dysfunction in Washington with the House of Representatives, and it is increasingly a problem here in Virginia, and it impedes our ability to deal with these big issues that we must deal with.
Why?
So I'm hopeful that if those of us here in the General Assembly, part of what we do in these legislative jobs is it's important to get bills passed, but it's also important to keep these issues alive and out there in the public discussion so we can build support for them in later years.
Okay, Senator, we're almost out of time. Final question. You've got 10 days remaining, what is your top priority?
We've got a lot of them here. I've got a budget amendment in with Senator Alexander for Children's Hospital, the King's Daughter, CHKD, which is very important. We've got it in the Senate budget. We want to make sure that it comes out of this conference committee. I'd like to see, we had a coastal resiliency bill to start a coastal resiliency fund for low-interest loans to homeowners for flooding mitigation, and I'm hopeful to get that out of here. It was sent it's passed the Senate resoundingly and was sent this morning by House Ag to Appropriations, so I hope I can get it out of there before the session ends because that's important. Delegate Stolle is a co-patron on that, so that's important. So there are two of the larger issues remaining that I hope to get out of here, and I think they're important.
Okay. And before we take off, I've got a message for you to deliver to your L.A., your legislative Charlie Stanton.
Yeah.
I want you to tell Charlie that Governor McAuliffe has promised me to invite me to one of his infamous happy hours. And I'm going to go and tell him I'm not taking Charlie with me. I'm just not. I've already made that decision. Charlie's out. I'm going to take Saslaw.
Okay.
So
okay.
It is what it is.
I can understand that. I can certainly understand that.
Hey, Senator, great to have you on. If people want more info, where do they go?
We've got a website they can go to, www.lynwoodlewis.com.